So my name is Sofiane Madmar. I'm a graduate in urban planning and policies. And recently I started to write for a Geopolitical journal. And I realized that analyzing city with a geopolitical framework helps and was very relevant to understand why some projects, especially in the global south, in developing countries, why they are failing to meet contemporary urban planning expectations. How many of you have heard about an extravagant project, a mega project that seems useless, a waste, or even a big fail? We have many online. So, because urban planning is one of the most crucial tools for progress, as it organizes, especially in our cities, progress, advancement in technological advancements and social advancement, we should not overlook the fact that sometimes city planning is driven by geopolitical purposes. So let me tell you a little story from my childhood to illustrate these ideas. This is my hometown in France. And when I was a kid, I was playing a game with my siblings. In my bedroom, we were playing a game called The City. So basically, it was a kind of role play where we gathered every toy we had to create a toy-made city. So we had everything a city needs: roads, infrastructures, a police station, a market, a city hall, and so on. But the game had something more. One day, as the big mayor of the city, I decided to move part of the population of my city to the living room. And there, I decided to colonize the carpet. The carpet was a kind of island. And we decided to fight the local crocodile tribe, was represented by this kind of clothespins from my mom. And after beating this tribe, we decided to start constructing settlements on this island. So here you see that in our story, urban planning by constructing settlements, by constructing a new city in a new land, was used as a means of cohesion, as a strength. The power of cities, this is a good example. So now you may guess that my game was quite violent sometimes. So my other sister, she decided to create her own city in her bedroom. Obviously, I wasn't pleased with that, because I lost 1 player over 4. So we started competing for the best city. And she decided to call her city Flowery City. It was like the girly, peaceful city. So as a reply, I decided to call it Trash City. Sorry, sis. Okay. So here, it was used as competition for influence. So in fact, urban planning can be used as a tool for hard power by means of cohesion, or as a tool for soft power by competition for influence. So let's explore it further with examples of cities you may know and that I had the opportunity to visit last year during my internship here at UTM. So let's start with hard power. Historically, urban planning is very related with military needs. You may know this wall. Do you? Yeah. In which city is it? Malacca. Yes, Malacca. So this is the Portuguese wall in Malacca. And this is a mark of history showing that cities of the past had been planned with defensive purposes because they were fortified. And at that time, there were no planners, no urbanists, only military men. So this is an example of hard power used with city and urban planning. And obviously, political regime use cities and use urban planning specifically to impose order on the cities, but also on colonial urban places. Because when the colonial empires were very wide, they had to control what's happening in their colonial lands. So you have plenty of examples in Malaysian heritage sites where you can see the architecture from the colonial order, and they paid particular attention to bring their own architecture to impose and to embed their dominance on the land. And they're also always segregated between the colonists and the colonized. Today, construction is still a display of power. Most of the time, it's through construction to show economic power. I will not ask you if you know these towers, because this is a big symbol of Malaysia, but a big symbol of Malaysian economy. But still today, we have, especially in the current conflicts in the world, we see that construction, even destruction, and settlements are still a big symbol for powers to embed their power, to claim lands, reclaim, or even stolen lands. So this was about hard power. And soft power is very interesting nowadays, because cities are not just building, they are bringing a message. A city skyline, such as here in Singapore, is like the scan code of a city. When you read it, you know what the city stands for. For instance, here, you have big bank names erected in the sky. So you clearly understand that Singapore has a strong link with capitalism and finance. And of course, this is a big hub for finance in Asia. So urban planning is also the result of a society's worldview, a society's paradigm. To rephrase the famous quotation from Churchill, we shape cities until cities shape us. So in the story of ideas, to concretize these philosophies, these beliefs, values, regimes has always tried to build cities according to these values. And reversely, these cities can change people's behavior and people's worldview. You have here a very interesting example in UTM's campus. You may know that the first building constructed in this campus was the mosque, Masjid Sultan Ismail. And it was constructed on the top of a hill, so visible from all the campus. This was very coherent with UTM's philosophy and UTM's motto, which is in the name of God for mankind. So you see that the power of urban planning is to concretize beliefs and values, and reversely, it can change people's life and influence them into some values or some beliefs. Of course, UTM doesn't have like particular geopolitical agenda with this mosque. But so aside from these considerations that could be like a little bit more philosophical, cities are just begging for attention always. For instance, it can be by trying to attract tourists in cities. And you have plenty of amenities, for instance, in Singapore, where they try to attract a lot of tourists and to show their city-state in a good light, in a positive light. And it is true, like, for instance, Gardens by the Bay Park or any other amenities. So they try to attract tourists. But they also try to attract, and all the cities in the world, they try to attract investors, and especially foreign investors. Because cities nowadays are ranked according to their possibly investable city. So cities may use this planning to make sure that investors will come. And sometimes it's result on foreign geopolitical commitments with foreign countries, such as the Silk Road, which is basically investment from China in a lot of cities to build infrastructure. And finally, cities are begging for attention by trying to organize big events, and especially international events, such as World Cup, Olympics, or international political events and diplomatic events. So now we understand that cities, urban planning, are used for geopolitical purposes, either by hard power, means of coercion, or soft power. But today, we are facing new challenges in our cities. So it made me think, how can we think about new strategies that can really tackle our challenges? Because for me, a good planning means taking the wisdom from the past and understanding the challenges of the present in order to reach progress. And I would like to highlight here two main challenges of the present, which is first climate change. Climate change is now changing our cities. We are not adapted to the new climatic situation, and it's a big deal for planners. And cities are not, they are contributing to climate change. 70% of CO2 emissions are due to cities. And the second issue I would like to highlight is social equity. In the world, 25% of urban population is living in slums. Do you know what is the figure for Southeast Asia? 10%? 20%? 30%? 50%. And the same in Africa. So we have a big problem about poverty and social equity. But the aspirations of planners are most of the time limited by political and economical incentives. As we can witness, everyone, that when the geopolitical incentives go to a way, everything follows. When a country wants to create the new capital, they can do it. The political and economical incentives are not limiting anymore. So maybe we can try to direct the geopolitical incentives through progress, and then the limitation will be reduced. So instead of constricting useless building, constricting the highest skyscraper, wasting a lot of money, and so on, so from a competition based on showing muscle, we could change and go to a competition based on co-opetition, to a progress-based competition, such as the new capital of Indonesia, which is very progressive. It tries to reduce its carbon emissions. It tries to change the way of life and the behavior of people to create a more eco-friendly city. It's even designed by inspiring from nature. So this is a model for the future cities. And this city has obviously geopolitical purposes and strategies. I will not detail, but they didn't create the futurist city. They didn't create any skyscraper. I mean, this is a plan, so we hope that it will succeed. It will succeed. So why a co-opetition? Because now we must, compete in some aspects, but also collaborate in some other to reach all together progress. Terima kasih.